All right, friends, greetings and welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com, and on Twitter, now known as X, it's at What's Right Sam. Thank you, I got it all. It's a tongue twister now with the What's Right Show email address and then the handle for X. Okay, friends, good to be here. Obviously, one of the things here developing today, beside the group chat, the Signal group chat that happened to include a reporter, I'll talk about that in a minute, is a piece by Axios, which is a news site definitely center-left, bemoaning the fact that the Democratic Party is absolutely screwed. They don't put it that way, but it basically is, in sum and total, the gist of the piece. Reporters who wrote this piece for Axios said that top Democrats told them that the party is in the deepest hole it's been in nearly 50 years. And that their fears are that the party actually could even get worse, that things could further deteriorate. The party has just had its lowest favorability ever. There is not a single popular national leader to help improve it. You know, we had over the weekend some feeble efforts at this AOC, and Bernie Sanders, who himself is no spring chicken, up there doing these Stop the Oligarchy tours. And we had one of those events here in Las Vegas. What's the problem with this? As I have said over and over again, it's not just that Bernie's old, it's that the messaging sucks. Tell us what you're for, not what you're against. But it's obviously lost on the Democrats now. So they've got him. They're calling it a durable minority on the Supreme Court. I mean, that's kind of not true given the way that the Chief Justice seems to be voting. But it does, the Axios piece, say, and this is very, very important, that young voters, particularly young male voters, are growing dramatically more conservative. So it's just, things are horrid. And for all of the talk, and I saw just over the weekend, I can't tell you how many times, maybe 2 or 3 different media appearances by Chuck Schumer. Chuck Tard Schumer. He gets up there and he says, oh, we're gonna destroy the Republicans in the midterms. We're gonna take back the Senate. We're gonna take back the House. You know, I mean, anything can happen. I've always told you that things that are a year or 2 out, I mean, a year is a political eternity. So an election that is just under 2 years away is a lifetime. A lot can happen, but it's not likely to. The seats that are up, the senators that are up for re-election, there are more vulnerable Democrats than Republicans. So it matters. It's just sort of luck of the draw. It happens to be the states where it's possible for Republicans to actually gain seats, i.e. in Georgia. And then you've got the Dem Senate retirements. You got senators calling it quits because I think they realize that the writing's on the wall. They're not going to get reelected and they don't want to do it. And so now the Dems in those states have to field new candidates. There are only 3 House Republicans in districts that were won by Vice President Kamala Harris in 2024. Only 3. And Axios calls this a dim sign for a Democratic surge. By the way, there were 23 8 years ago when Hillary Clinton won. So this is a problem. And they don't even put this in the piece, but I think, judging by how quickly Trump is moving to deport illegals, fix problems even in blue states, I saw, and Robbie, I'm sure you saw this too, that in California, there's a chance that most people that ever have responded to a survey about the likelihood that they would vote Republican in the next election. I mean, it's up there in the mid 40s. Unprecedented. So these are the big issues, and it's against this backdrop that, of course, a number of prominent Democrats are trying to get out there and do a song and dance and get up on stage and literally, in some cases, perform. And I'm not just talking about burning an AOC. You know, Tim Walz is putting himself out there. He, of course, last week drew some scorn from yours truly for his agitation and excitement over Tesla stock dropping. Tesla up huge since then. So I guess Tim Walz's desire that Tesla stock drop did not materialize. But yeah. So and then of course Gavin Newsom, who has a podcast and is desperately trying to reinvent himself as some sort of new found moderate. So, all right, there it is. My take on all of this is it's been a long time coming. None of this surprises me. And the moral vacuum left behind by Barack Obama now is finally the chickens are coming home to roost. Obama was a disastrous president. And what did he do? He took the mantle of being the first black president elected by, in fact, I would argue, certainly in his first election, elected by a lot of guilt-ridden white Republicans, okay? And that's the numbers are there, the statistics are there to back that up. Ends up doing what? He ends up becoming one of the most divisive, race-baiting presidents we've ever had, certainly in my lifetime. And that, I think, sunk the party. And then Obama did something that was, and this is very important too, he kind of just stayed and hung out. And Obama loathes, okay, Joe Biden, doesn't like him at all. And I'm not one to make excuses for Biden, trust me, but imagine that you are Obama. In your mind, you are the greatest. You are the king of Kong. You are the grand poobah. And because Joe Biden, who ends up on fluke, basically getting elected president in 2020, is non-compos mentis, is just not there, mentally, physically, everything. You end up, as Obama, right? You still end up becoming the go-to power person in the party, but you're deep behind the scenes and you're sabotaging your own president and his people. You go to visit the White House, everybody flocks to Obama. Remember that video? But what's Obama using all this power for? Is he bringing about change? Is he unifying the party? Is he getting the grassroots out to do things for the party? No, he's not. He is making tens of millions of dollars off of it. He's using all of this political power to line his pockets. And I almost, I don't begrudge him this necessarily, other than it is, if I were a Democrat, I'd view this with an enormous amount of resentment and anger even. But the Democrats right now are too busy torching Teslas and screaming that it's Elon Musk and Trump that ought to be hung from some pole somewhere as if they were, Benito Mussolini. And no, that's a direct quote from somebody visiting an AOC Bernie Sanders rally. These people are demented. But it is a small, vocal, and frightening minority within the Democratic Party that does this. Yes, on the flip side, they're the ones getting all the attention. And the rest of the Democrats are like, this is not a party that I like at all. And so there it is. A complete unfolding disaster. We'll get into the details here, but I will tell you it is good news all around. If you want to see Trump's agenda continue through 2028, things are certainly looking on the up and up for that. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, the What's Right show. We'll be back in a moment.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian behind the What's Right microphone. So, the poll that just came out, speaking of how deeply this party is in trouble, Democrats were asked who is the leader of the party. This was a CNN poll conducted between the 6th and the 9th, and it just got released on Sunday. 10% of Democrats chose AOC, who's been in Congress now for a few terms, has never run anything, as a former bartender. Kamala Harris, whose entire campaign ran on hope and vodka, 9%. Okay. Bernie Sanders, 8%. Hakeem Jeffries, who? 6%. Barack Obama is at 4%. I think that this is because Barack has really fallen, as I was explaining before. Jasmine Crockett, the ultra ghetto member of Congress from Texas, 4% of the people, tied with Barack Obama. Oh, the indignity. Nancy Pelosi's at 2%, 1% Tim Walz. 1%. Oh, Chuck Tard Schumer got 2%, his only job, I think, has ever been to be in government. All right. Democratic Party, favorable, unfavorable, 29% favorable, 54% unfavorable in the same poll. This is a disaster. Now, AOC is the leader in this, okay? And Bernie Sanders comes in third. So obviously, something having to do with these recent stunts, these rallies that they're holding, it has something has caught people's attention. AOC, by the way, tweeted yesterday, 86,000 people in 3 days. 86,000 in 3 days. At our first stop alone, half the crowd were brand new people, not previously on any list of ours or contact. Many were first timers. And then she goes on to say, what is happening now is different. Let's use this moment to fight back and defend our democracy. I've told you about this guy, Tony Segura, and what he does. He's a data guy, and he knows tech and everything. He looks at the GPS randomized, right? Oh, not randomized, but data for cell phones stripped of their names, right? And other identifying characteristics. And he goes through and he can look at Trump rallies. He's looked at Kamala Harris rallies during the 2024 election. And one of the things that he discovered was that the Kamala rallies had a bunch of people that kept going to the same rally. Like 80% of a Kamala Harris rally had cell phones there that had been to at least 4 other rallies. And these 4 other rallies were in completely different states. And the point of it is these people were paid to be there, right? I mean, that's the implication. Very few people will travel around, ordinary voters will travel around and go, for example, to a Trump rally in Phoenix and then go to one, in Alabama and then go to one, in Florida. Like, just don't do that. People, there's some, I'm sure, but it's not common. So there it is. He goes actually about Denver, that there were 20,189 devices. It's a large crowd, but it's not close to the 30,000 quoted in the Denver newspapers or the 34,000 quoted by Bernie and AOC. So they're lying about the numbers, or 14,000 people that went there didn't bring their phones. I don't think that happened. Now, here's the good part. Remember again, AOC says these are, half the crowd are brand new people, not on any list, first timers, blah, blah, blah. Get ready. 84% of the devices present had attended 9 or more Kamala Harris rallies, had attended Antifa BLM, pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian protests, and 31% had attended over 20. In other words, it's made up of mostly known Democrat Party operatives, agitators, paid protesters, etc. This is wild. And they want to make it seem like this is just this groundswell of support that's coming, for AOC, for Bernie to stop people like Elon Musk. And the reality is that the people that are actually supporting this agenda, that are, that want to see Elon Musk, guillotined, are a small but really terrifying group. And I want to play, as a reporter went around and interviewed folks at the, at the event. And this was Friday night in Colorado. This was at the Denver rally, Bernie AOC rally at the Civic Center Park in Denver, Colorado. And KNUS went out there. Okay. And this is guy who says, well, that's what we ought to do with Trump. Listen, it sounds like a nice guy.
My sign says, if you want to know how fascism ends, ask Benito Mussolini.
And they hung him, right?
Yep, they hung him by his feet from a lamppost. That's exactly what every fascist deserves. The only good fascist is a dead fascist.
Now, are you calling for that to happen to our president right now?
I believe that the minute that Donald Trump decided to start ignoring judicial orders, he gave up the right to be the rightful president of the United States. He's an enemy of the nation, and yes, I'd like to see him hung by his feet by a lamppost. The only way we're getting Donald Trump or J.D. Vance or his ilk out of power is having tens of millions in this people in the streets, and we're going to have to have a few thousand people die at the hands of cops and soldiers before people get outraged enough to actually force the government to resign.
Wow, that's lovely. I think he's calling for the execution of the president, but, I'm certain that the Secret Service will be paying this nice gentleman a visit. And it just got worse from there. Again, Jeff Hunt from KNUS in Denver, Colorado, back at the Civic Center Park. One rally goer goes, hey, this is what we need to do. We need to hang the fascists just like we did Benito Mussolini.
Beheaded Donald Trump. Are you calling for his death?
I am, yes. I believe it's time that the people straight cut his head off.
Tell me what your shirt is all about.
Yeah, so it says, "But Daddy, I love him." And it's a picture of Luigi Mangione.
And he's the guy that shot the executive for the healthcare company, right?
Yeah, the CEO of the healthcare company. So yeah, I just think he's like a guy that's kind of bringing people together. Like all the classes need to get together against the CEOs of the country. I don't know. Of
healthcare and other CEOs, but he committed murder. Doesn't that give you any pause?
So does the CEO every day that's denying healthcare to all these people. So one person against millions of people. So
but, you wouldn't necessarily call for violence, would you? Are you supporting violence?
And here's another answer.
I think there's the people in power, that's all they're going to listen to at this point. I feel like we've done the rallies, we've done all these things, and they don't listen, and that was something that finally got people to listen.
You know what they do? They hang that Confederated flag, that red, white, and blue.
It's okay. The red, white, and blue?
Confederate? It's Confederated.
There's
Illuminati.
These are the people out there actually going to these things. By the way, so the first one was about Benito Mussolini. The second one was about Luigi Mangione, the alleged killer of the United Healthcare CEO. And the woman just has a shirt, just fawning over this murderer. These are the people that are out there. Scary bunch. It's one of the reasons the Democratic Party is so in trouble. Be right back, folks. What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. At What's Right Sam on X. And of course, email is sam@whatsrightshow.com. sam@whatsrightshow.com. Okie dokie. So we've got this story, the latest story here. Axios mentioned at the top of the hour, bemoaning the absolute crisis that is the Democratic Party right now. Very low, record bottom support, but also combined with a perfect storm of basically absent or non-existent leadership and a wholesale rejection, really, of left-wing woke ideology. You know, people aren't bringing this up, but it's part of the story. I mean, look at this Snow White movie. I mean, the Snow White movie bombed everywhere. It bombed even in China. In China, where generally speaking, you know, they're interested in all things Disney and American culture and whatnot. And it did disastrously everywhere. It's going to be a complete bloodbath. And people are saying, well, you know what, Disney, you know, should have not. Disney knew that this thing was an absolute disaster. They're just trying to recoup some money. I think they know it's going to be a complete loss. And but this is the price of producing content that Americans don't want. And the Democratic Party is Disney, meaning the Democratic Party is producing politicians that people, by and large, do not want, and policies that, by and large, Americans are rejecting. That's the straight scoop. And when you look at the kind of people operating now, you know, I gave a couple of people on tape here. One saying that basically we ought to Mussolini Trump, hang him, you know, by his toes and kill him, execute him. And another gal who is celebrating Luigi Mangione, the alleged United Healthcare CEO killer, and canonizing him, lionizing him as some sort of a unifier, a societal hero. Okay? And you realize that these people are part of absolute left-wing fringe groups. For example, the Disruption Project, Rise and Resist, the Indivisible Project, Troublemakers, and the Democratic Socialists of America. It wasn't that long ago, like 2 years, where reasonable people, even supposedly reasonable people, were on mainstream media saying things like, you know what, the Democratic Socialists are the future of the Democratic Party, are the future of America. People were saying that. And now it's been completely rejected, and it's the fringes that are adopting this stuff and running with it, and in fact painting the entire Democratic Party with this nonsense, and it is just an immense dumpster fire. By the way, the group Indivisible is the group that I mentioned last week that Soros was funding to help take out Chuck Tard Schumer. And this is going to be a problem for Schumer. That's why he's fighting for his political life and desperately going out there doing media appearances, talking the big communism talk and actually pivoting leftward, all in an effort to stave off a primary challenge to himself and his seat that he has held, his Senate seat in New York, for so long that, nobody can exactly remember when it began. And here's the Indivisible group, by the way. They're talking, they're organizing, right? And they're talking to their members about how they should communicate. Now, this is particularly funny to me in light of the fact that Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, and others were on a group chat, a Signal group chat, And apparently somebody threw on a reporter from the Atlantic. And so the entire contents of the chat leaked, and it was, I guess, the planning stages of the strike on the Houthis. And so, of course, the mainstream media is having a field day with this. And I guess what's my comment? My comment is, why are they talking to reporters? Why don't they just stay away from these people? Why do they even have the guy's number? I think it was Mike Walls, was that who had National Security Advisor? Why did he have this guy's number saved? I understand reporters are normal in DC, you've got people's numbers, but I'd put them on some sort of a do not text list and block their number, requiring like a level or two of authentication before you fire off any text. The whole thing is a mess, right? But anyway, lesson learned. But here are the Tesla terrorists talking amongst themselves how they need to stay clear of this and actually have a signal chat themselves to prevent the authorities from finding out what they're up
From
to.
David, what communication technology should we use? Oh, this is a great question. Should we be afraid of malicious federal executive branch snooping on us?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you should. Leah, we've talked about this a few times in prior meetings, some lessons learned.
Signal, would recommend Signal for folks. If you are doing just communications, it's the closest thing we've got to something that we can trust. So definitely recommend any kind of organizing conversations that you can switch over to Signal, do so. That's like my top line. I think in terms of, Ezra, go ahead.
Well, I would say Blue Sky obviously is an alternative to Twitter and to some extent Facebook. I don't trust, obviously, Twitter, and I don't trust Facebook as well, or Instagram or WhatsApp, because it's all owned by these Musk or Trump-aligned techno billionaires. Blue Sky is better, is more independent. I have less fear that it's being taken over by Nazis.
Oh, Blue Sky's better, has been taken over by Nazis. To these people, can you imagine Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, now is a Nazi to these people? This is a guy who spent how much money? Like $100 million? $100 million in 2020 to get Biden elected. And to these people, he's a Nazi. And they're holding, right, video conferences to share with their members how to hide communications from the police so they can wage acts of domestic terrorism. It's really wild stuff when you look at this. You're probably saying, well, but Sam, what does this have to do with the Democratic Party? Well, tell me just 3 rallies in the last week. Bernie Sanders, AOC. They're in the top 3, according to poll respondents in a CNN poll, as the top leaders of the Democratic Party. Did they distance themselves from this? So that's the $1 million question, right? It was at their rally that some of these wild things about hanging Trump like Mussolini came out from people. They weren't up there saying, well, listen, hold up. Never mind that our party has at least 25 billionaires who were very active this last election cycle. We're not out to, kill the billionaires or kill Trump. Right? We're here to, articulate our positive vision for the country moving forward. But that didn't happen. Instead, we had a rousing shout fest, as Bernie Sanders will do and AOC will do, denouncing Trump, denouncing, fine, whatever, and understand they don't like him, denouncing Elon Musk, denouncing anybody that supports Trump, denouncing Americans that support Trump, throwing everybody out and labeling them as a fascist and a Nazi. That repeatedly was said. It's terrible. Imagine that you're a middle of the road to Democrat and you're like, oh, I'm running for re-election, or oh, I'm running to, I don't know, I'm running for a new position. No, I said this half jokingly to a friend who is exactly in this predicament, and I said, why don't you just, he's a Democrat, he's a reasonable, moderate, I would say actually conservative Democrat. And I joked to him, I said, why don't you just run as a Republican? My gosh, I mean, this party is like a lead balloon, you know? You think, normally in an election, your party's going to help you in some way, right? You align yourself with your party, the party gets you the base, they come out, whatever. 29, percent support, my gosh. This is like throwing somebody, a grand piano to use as a flotation device. So, or an anvil. That's a better analogy. Terrible stuff. I don't even know. And the violence, the Tesla violence is continuing. By the way, stocks for Tesla soaring. Okay, they're way up. But the latest news is that Austin, Texas, they discovered a bunch of bombs inside a Tesla showroom there. Absolutely terrifying. And I understand, look, every party's got its wingnuts. But go back to all of the grievances that we Republicans had in the last 4 years. We had the entire judiciary go out against us. They arrested grandmothers, real estate agents, moms and pops that showed up at the Capitol, literally just wandered in like oafs going into the Capitol. Shouldn't have done it. Sure, trespass, yes. Years in prison? Question mark? No. But we had a judiciary go after them. Then they went after our president. They went after Trump. They went after Trump's lawyers. They opened the floodgates of the border. Filled our country full of illicit drugs, human trafficking, murderers, rapists, serial criminals, galore. And look, I mean, I don't know what the equivalent would be. Did we start torching stuff? No, I'm telling you, the most unbelievable violence always historically comes from the left. And it's not going to help mainstream Democrats do anything until they come out and denounce it. But the Democrats are terrified of their own base. They're terrified of these people actually turning on them. And what we saw last week is that Chuck Schumer feared this so badly that he's since then gone on a media tour, basically aligning himself to much of the insanity here that the fringe lunatic left is espousing. Not good. All right, friends, be right back. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Oh, I see this. Yeah, Hillary Clinton wading into the fact that folks in the Trump administration, including Mike Walls, included a reporter in a group chat, Signal group chat, laying out their plans to strike Yemen. Hillary Clinton wrote, "You've got to be kidding me." Does it astound anyone how some people can have no shame? This is a gal that, if you'll recall, used her server, private mail server, her Yahoo mail, whatever it was, to transmit state secrets when she was Secretary of State. Wild stuff. All right, Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome back to the program. So, a couple of things here I am just catching up on. One thing I saw last week that ties into all this bad news for the Democrats is the workup, and this was a piece in Vox.com by Eric Levitz. This was last week. And he went through and he looked at basically the data, the voting data from 2024, and realized that actually if all of Trump's supporters showed up, if all the Republicans showed up, and not even all of them did, Trump would have won even more decisively. And that basically all of Democrats could have shown up in the same time period and she still would have lost. That's how bad Kamala Harris's defeat was, right? That's the gist of it. And what they had people believe, this is hugely important, what they had people believe was that Kamala Harris, because she had Beyonce supporting her, because she had rallies where there were supposedly 20,000 people, that she was destined to win, that it was a sure thing, and that the polls simply were wrong, and the math doesn't exist, or the math isn't real. And it's something that a lot of people cite, and it's just simply not the case. Now, it's funny because, yeah, we have that, right? The clip. Yes, Rosie O'Donnell said something to this effect. And where was this? When did she say this? She goes, yeah, this is Ireland's Late Show with Patrick Kielty. O'Donnell has moved to Ireland, is trying to get permanent residency. Apparently, they rejected her permanent residency status. So I guess this is the one immigrant Ireland doesn't want, or the current government doesn't want. But I'm not up to speed fully on her stay in Ireland. But this is what she had to say when asked by Patrick Kielty about Trump and about the election, and if she knows a lot of people that voted for him. Rosie's answer is telling.
You know, a lot of people did vote for him.
Yes.
Do you accept their right to do that and their opinion of him?
Well, I respect their right to do that. I question why the first time in American history a president has won every swing state and is also best friends, and his largest donor was a man who owns and runs the internet. So I would hope that that would be investigated and that we would see whether or not it was an anomaly or something else that happened on election night in America when Kamala Harris was filling up stadiums with people who supported her, and Donald Trump was not able to do that. So it's curious to me, and as an American and a believer in democracy, I would hope that we would be able to look at all of the reasons why this happened in our country.
Well, unfortunately for Rosie, I think she missed 1984, where Ronald Reagan won every state except Minnesota. Okay? So there's that, number one. Number two, see what she says about the crowd sizes? But Kamala had such big crowds. You can't tell me, right? This is her logic. You can't tell me that Kamala didn't win. She had the people there. And I remember saying this before I saw the GPS data. I remember, folks, what I told you was that these rallies, these Kamala rallies, had videos of these buses lined up. They're all from the same company. It was all super organized. People getting on the buses, you know, getting dropped off, getting picked up afterwards. Off they go. Do you know what an expense that is? You know, Trump ran I would describe it as a shoestring budget campaign compared to the Democrats. And there are, you know, Trump rallies didn't provide transportation for people. You showed up. The point of a Trump rally is, you know, I know a lot of you have been to them. You know what I'm talking about. There's no bus. What do you have? You've got a parking lot there. You park. You walk, okay? Maybe there's some shuttle running for some folks, but you walk, you stand in a line, you wait in the heat, in the summer sun. People warm up the crowd, and then in comes Trump and delivers his show. People love the guy so much that they are willing to endure all of that. By contrast, Kamala pays Beyonce to show up, 10 million, not sing. The people that are there are 80% made up of Democratic Party paid agitators who are in the crowd going, yay, yay. And it's all fake and phony. And it felt fake and phony in the moment when it was happening, before I even saw the data. And then when the data began coming out, the whole thing started to get more and more obvious. It is, if I could do a analogy to to finance. To me, it's basically it's just a pumped up fake stock that's been hyped up. There's no real value there. I'm speaking about the Democratic Party. I'm speaking about Kamala Harris. It was always pumped up, fake, lipstick on a pig. I'm talking about Kamala Harris as a pig. I'm talking about the party, her campaign. There wasn't tremendous amount of grassroots support, but it was intended to make that seem to be the case. And what it did is for the people that bought into it, the Democrats, rank and file Democrats, bought into it, now have their brains forever broken because it gave them the impression that she would win. And when she didn't, they now are doubting everything, which is, a problem. Okay. All right. I got lots to cover. Be right back, folks. Music's on. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Welcome, friends, to the What's Right show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., here on News Talk 840, KXNT. Great to be here with you. Beautiful Monday, March 24th, warm here in beautiful downtown Las Vegas. And of course, my email, Sam at What's Right Show, best place to reach me. And as an alternative, hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter, at What's Right Sam. In fact, listener J9 True just tweeted at me here a moment ago. Hey, Sam, might have appeared to have a lot of supporters, but it was actually going to a concert. So this is in regards to the Kamala Harris rallies. This is the point, right? Yes, they were promised a concert, bait and switch. You're going to go see Beyonce, and then it ended up being a terrible rally. Nobody wanted to show up to listen to Kamala Harris. It was boring as all hell. And the people that were there for other reasons. Either they were getting paid or they were hoping to see a pop star. Hey, nobody was going to a Trump rally for the music, okay? Although, they play some good tunes. People went to Trump rallies because they love Trump and because Trump is one of the most entertaining guys out there. But people went to see him. He was a celebrity, is a celebrity. But I'm talking in the context of the race, right? Wildly entertaining, captivating guy. So, the weekend, absolute bloodbath for Democrats. This is the poll from KABC that I was referencing just at the beginning of last hour about California. I misremembered, Robbie. You're right. 48% of Californians would vote for a Republican governor. 48% of Californians would vote for a Republican. My gosh. 83% of voters said gas prices are too high. 73% support fully funding anti-crime Prop 36, which Democratic leaders in the state refuse to do. Gavin Newsom refuses to do it, even though he's on a podcast every week talking about how moderate he is. Here's one that's pretty obvious to me. 72% feel homelessness still is a big problem after years of Democrat-controlled Sacramento. I mean, it is a problem. I mean, it's huge, right? They keep throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at it, okay? But the only people benefiting from it are the folks that are operating these scam programs to help the homeless. Remember the fire budget in California? This was in the city of Los Angeles. I forget the exact numbers, but there was they had to cut the fire budget by 18 million or something like that. And the same year that they had to cut the budget, right, which caused the fire chief, Ms. Crowley, to have her little, fight against the mayor, which eventually Crowley lost and was fired following the disastrous LA fires. Okay. At the same time that they were cutting the fire budget, they were investing, what was it, Robbie? Something like 120 extra million into the homeless program in LA. It's unbelievable. Okay, it is a money pit. 69% of all Californians think Democrats in Sacramento have not done enough to bring down energy costs. 62 support a full independent investigation of the LA wildfires. And here is the coup de grace. Only 24% of Californians think men should compete in female sports. That's right. 24% of Californians think that transgender athletes should compete against women. Huh. Wow. This is why Gavin Newsom has seen this polling. This is why he's doing that stupid podcast. He realizes that he can't. I don't think Gavin Newsom could, win for re-election. And the issue, by the way, is that he has to. He's fighting off a pretty serious effort to remove him. So he's, this is the recall is underway. So he's pivoting as fast as he can. Everybody is fleeing from the woke Democratic Party platform. Now I want to talk about Nevada for a minute, because Victor Jakes, my friend Victor at the RJ, had an interesting point about this. Given the Vox piece I mentioned last hour, given this polling even in crazy liberal left-wing California, Joseph Lombardo, who I adore, okay, and I support, I want Joe to win re-election. I want Governor Lombardo to get a second term. Absolutely, without question. But he needs to look at this, and this is why I suspect Lombardo is pivoting a little bit to the right. He needs to give Republicans in Nevada and conservatives, center-right people, something to show up for. It is likely to be a match of Lombardo against A.A. Ron Ford. And A.A. Ron Ford is out there doubling down on the insanity. A.A. Ron Ford is aligning himself with AOC. He's aligning himself with Bernie Sanders. Not a day goes by that he is not, because he's currently Attorney General, and I cannot be more happy that he's leaving that position. A.A. Ron Ford is term limited out of the Attorney Generalship, so he's moving on, wants to become governor. And as Attorney General, he is suing Trump over very popular issues, including immigration. So he wants to double down. He wants to make Nevada a sanctuary state. He can't do that as Attorney General, except he can choose who to not prosecute, as the state sovereign. It's just wild stuff, okay? The state attorney general really should fall under the governorship. I've always said this. It's astounding to me that it's all these separately elected positions that then somehow have to work together, even if they're diametrically opposed in what they want to do or see for the state. So, it is a cautionary tale right now for Republicans who want to play it safe, because now's not the time. America has turned on the woke. America is done with illegal immigration. America is like, yeah, you're deporting people, Tren de Regua, down to some prison in El Salvador that looks like a living hellhole. Yeah, more cowbell. Yeah, inject that into my veins. Most of America likes this. And why? Because the other side went way too far out there the other direction. And what we're witnessing is an immense course correction. And gone is the traditional math of, well, I'm running in Nevada. It's a purple state. I think I'm just going to play it safe and sort of, be a wishy-washy Republican. Because then if you look at those numbers of who shows up, okay, if everyone voted in 2024 if everyone voted in the country, okay, this is the interesting number. Every Democrat, every Republican, based on the model that we saw, Trump would have won the election instead of by 1.4%, would have won it by 4.8%. Think about that. More than 3x increase in percentage of deviants, right? So there it is. Absolutely astounding information. And what it tells us is, got to get on the train. The trans issue is an 80-20 issue. Immigration is becoming an 80-20 issue. Public safety is an 80-20 issue. Unleashing the economy, government waste, Doge, 80-20 issue. Okay? It's all big. So you do not want to be a Republican out there who's like, well, we're not going to enforce immigration law and, Doge, we got to keep, this and that and do a scalpel approach. You cannot talk like that right now. You cannot think that way. And by the way, we need paper ballot, same day voting. We got to do it. State issued ID proof to vote. End of story. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, back in just a moment.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to the program. Last night, got word that former Utah Representative Mia Love passed away. This is sad news. She was 49 years old. She had a brain tumor that recently everybody found out basically was just going to take her life. So this was absolutely very sad. She's from Saratoga Springs, Utah. The daughter of Haitian immigrants. Saratoga Springs is a community south of Salt Lake City. My brother-in-law and his wife lived there for quite a while. Her family still lives there. Some family still lives there. So anyway, very, very sad story. I've met Mia Love before, and just sending positive thoughts to her family. It's got to be an extremely trying time. Of course, she was African-American. She's Black. A Republican, a Mormon of all things, right? And a lot of people said she could not win that congressional seat in overwhelmingly white Utah. And I remember this back in 2014. All the criticism from the mainstream media, who ultimately are the biggest racist because they were wrong. People loved her. Voters loved her. And she definitely found a place in their hearts. So I'm just gutted by this. Very, very sad. Young, 49. My goodness. All right. Friends, welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Remember Mahmoud Khalil? This is the guy who organized protests supporting Hamas, Free Palestine, at the University of Columbia. And obviously, there's a bit of a fight over his deportation. The feds and the Department of Justice just logged some new accusations saying that he hid ties to the UNRWA on his green card application. And again, this is the part that gets them, right? And this is where, if you've got a visa, even a green card, and you lie on that visa, you lie on that green card, you can be deported. So, yes, well, the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees is famous for its work with Hamas. Its buildings have been used as Hamas headquarters. This is long established, basically a giant front for Hamas under the UN banner. All of it is a giant scam, and it is a red flag, ought to be a red flag for immigration authorities to see that affiliation. So anyway, that's why he hid it. If it's not on there, I think they've got a pretty open and shut case of getting him out. Of course, there'll be a judge somewhere that decides to stop it from happening. Now, I talked about the judges a lot last week. I'm just going to give you an update. Everything that I have said so far about this, I am still sticking to. And I had an interview yesterday on, it wasn't Real America's Voice, One American News. And they asked me about this, about what can happen to these judges, what's going to happen to Trump. And I said, all Trump has to do is just shrug and not follow these edicts. They're not lawful. And then what? What will happen? The only consequence that could come to Trump, the only thing that can happen to Trump is that he be removed from office. And that would require 50% plus one of the House of Representatives to vote for impeachment. And then it would require 2/3 of the Senate to vote to convict. And for the same reason that none of these judges are going to get impeached for their bad behavior, so Trump will never get impeached. Because you're not going to find, you're not going to find over 60, you're not going to find 14 Democrats to go and sign up for impeaching a Democrat judge. That's not going to happen. But you're also not going to get, 67, Democrats and Republicans to vote for Trump's removal. It's not going to happen. So the numbers aren't there. And when you look at the midterm math, because a lot of people out there saying, oh, but Sam, the midterms, that could happen. Changes in Congress, certainly in the House of Representatives. There's, a number of senators up for re-election. But again, back to where we started here. The electoral math looks terrible for Democrats. And if things keep up the way that they are, I don't really anticipate Democrats doing very well in the midterms. Trump's popularity just went up 2 points. Did you see this? Trump's popularity literally continues to rise and rise and rise because he ran on this platform. It wasn't Project, 2025 that he ran on. It was close the border, tariffs, unleash, government restraint, basically, unleash, the Doge people on government spending, balance the budget. The only way Trump can screw this up is if he doesn't fulfill his promises. And I'll go back to 2020 on this. Trump's biggest problem, in 2020 was, and I give him a lot of leeway for this because, of course, he was getting attacked from everybody. But Trump didn't deliver on the wall. He didn't deliver on immigration. He's certainly, the first Trump administration, nowhere near as robust as this one in the getting stuff done department. So he got punished for it in the polls. Yes, there was a lot of hanky-panky in 2020. I'm sorry, I'm talking about 2016. Forgive me, folks. I'm skipping around a little bit. In 2016, all that happened, right? He made promises in the election. We're going to build the wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. We didn't care who paid for it. We just wanted the damn wall built. And when it didn't get built, when the border didn't get as secure as we'd hoped, when immigrants weren't being deported, when that wasn't happening, a lot of people got mad at him. So then, forgive me, 2020 rolls around. And what happens? Yes, there was problems. There was problems in the polls. But also Trump didn't have a lot of Republicans that voted for him in the first go-around show up for him. And had they, he still could have won in spite of the enormous headwind of fraud. So now he's doing it. And my favorite thing is the biggest fakery out there, like the fakest of fake news, is when you see somebody in the mainstream media talking to or quoting in print a disaffected Trump voter. Folks, I have yet to meet, and I am extremely social, out and about, meet a disaffected Trump voter. I talk to Trump voters. I talk to people, hey, did you vote for Trump? Yeah, oh yeah, I voted for Trump. How you liking it so far? Oh, so good. That's the reaction. I'm actually hearing people, and this is why I think what, happened with Rand Paul, where he says, I'm a little bit late to this endorsement business. I'm going to endorse Trump now. People laughed, made fun of him that he endorsed him, 3 months after the election or whatever. My point is, right? Even people who weren't jazzed about Trump now are like, oh, kind of like what he's doing here. So whenever I see a quote, oh my gosh, a buyer's remorse, I didn't vote for this. I'm like, where did this is made up. This person, like, this is like got, they found him somewhere, 5150 released, back door of a hospital, and they're like, hey, we need a quote. Tell me you voted for Trump. Tell me you hate him. Yep, perfect. Done and done. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. By the way, that's exactly how I think it would have gone down. What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. We'll be back in a moment. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. So some people out there are saying that this, leaked battle plans, because I'm reading them right now, Robbie. They don't look like battle plans to me either. This is the Signal group chat with Pete Hegseth, JD Vance, musing about, when to strike the Houthis in Yemen. And they inadvertently had a journalist on the group chat. Was it an op? Few people are raising this possibility. Meaning, did they put the guy on there deliberately to leak it out? Because by the time, look, I don't know when this exactly transpired, and they're not being exactly clear about it either. My point is, like, it's already all happened. There's something else at play here. I'm just looking forward to reading more about this as the program tonight and tomorrow. So before next show, I promise I'll have an update on this. Absolutely fascinating. Okay. What so far, speaking of people loving the Trump program, what so far has happened? I mean, think about this, right? Even the Department of Education, every time a Republican primary rolls around for president, a Republican presidential primary, every Republican presidential, they talk about, we should look at getting rid of the Department of Education. And all of us Republican voters are like, yeah. We get all excited. And then, yeah, exactly. We just get the rug pulled out from it. Well, never mind. We were just doing that to get your support, get your contributions, get you excited. Stupid Republicans. We're rhinos. We're gonna go along, play along. We play nice with Democrats. We do things the right way, the DC way. The Department of Education has cost us $3 trillion since 1979. What has it done to improve ed? Nothing. Has it made our test scores go up? Has it made kids smarter? Are we more competitive now than we were back then vis-a-vis other countries? No. But how much of that $3 trillion has ended up in the coffers of the Democratic Party, laundered through the teachers' unions? Ask yourself that question. A lot. How much of that money has gone into liberal woke universities that are lobotomizing our youths, turning them into, political propagandists and rendering them completely useless in society and in our modern economy? Let's look at job growth, right? Trump in February 2025, last month, 93% private sector jobs. That's 140,000 jobs. And in the government, minus 7%. I guess there's some folks in the government who recently have lost their employment. So we have plus 140K private sector, minus 7% or 10,000 K in the government. Net growth of, you guessed it, 130,000 private sector jobs. Now, what about Biden? 75% private sector, or 3 million over the last 2 years of his presidency, or about 125,000 per month. And then 25% of that was government jobs. 25% of all of Biden's growth. And they did the, looked at the last 2 years because, of course, there's huge numbers coming out of COVID, but that's just people getting rehired. Okay. That's just undoing the disaster that was COVID mitigation. So this is 25% of it at least was government. Have you seen all of the investment in the country? Every day, a new company, international company, says they want to invest. SoftBank, $500 billion. Apple, $500 billion. NVIDIA, hundreds of billions of dollars. Johnson & Johnson, $55 billion. Merck, $8 billion. Clarios, $5 billion. Stellantis, producers of Jeep and Dodge vehicles that have been moving away from the U.S., $5 billion. GE Aerospace. Today, just today, my law partner Ash Watkins sent me a story that Rolls-Royce is looking to start building engines in the U.S. And I think it's actually the jet engine department, but I've got to look more closely. It was not too specific, but huge. Hyundai, South Korea's top car manufacturer, announcing a $20 billion U.S. investment. And what is Trump doing to get this? Oh, I don't know. He's just going around threatening people with tariffs, and everybody's having a cow like, oh my gosh. He's such a bull in the china shop. He's disrupting the markets. He's doing all this. He is freaking out international companies that rely on the U.S. market to sell their goods. And he's mind-psyching them into building and investing in the U.S. And they'll need American workers. We'll revitalize our manufacturing. It's going to drive up the economy. It's going to be amazing. The next 4 years will be incredible. I think we're going to start to see the benefits of this happening within the next 2 years, which means going into the midterms, booyah, things will be great. More bad news for the Democrats. Doge, by the way, discovering that there have been so much fraudulent expenditures by the federal government that now they're cooperating with the Department of Justice to bring people accountable. I told you this would happen. It's just a matter of time. There has to be accountability. This was theft. If half of what is being reported is true, it is criminal. Absolutely wild. In just 2 months of this presidency, unbelievable things are happening. Look at immigration. The border it's a trickle. It went from a flood to nothing. Border crossings are down in the low hundreds of people a day. Hundreds. When it was in the thousands under Joe Biden. It's unbelievable. So yeah, I think that this is popular. I think this is happening. And look, the FBI just went out, and I love how Kash Patel always says this now, the new FBI, right? The new FBI has taken down 3 of America's top 10 most wanted since Trump took office. And what's the point there? The FBI was so busy going after J6 people that they stopped going after actual criminals. The FBI was so focused on being political to the nth degree that they stopped going after pedophiles, child rapists, child traffickers. This isn't some Sam opinion that I'm just coming up with on the spot. It's real. The FBI became a politicized institution. And now, let me tell you the last thing, when we're going to talk about these judges and the lawfare. Remember, these are people, these judges like Boasberg, I mean, they already have a long record of going after January 6 people and hitting January 6 protesters who were nonviolent with prison time, using the Enron era law that was later struck down by the Supreme Court, said, you can't use this. against a bunch of grandmas, nice Americans who went to the Capitol, who protested the outcome of the election, and really, at the end of the day, worst case scenario, committed a trespass. Now, here's where I'm going with this. Who is doing more harm to our constitutional republic? Historically speaking, we have judges, okay, like Boasberg, who are taking it upon themselves to stop, slow down, resist a lawfully elected president and his agenda that the American people want enacted. And on the other hand, you've got a bunch of chiropractors and grandmothers who went to the Capitol building, took a tour of the Capitol, shuffled through, and walked back out the door. When you add to it, to the background here, the fact that it is very likely that much of the violence at the Capitol was committed at the hands of agitators and people who were paid to be there. And there's been some developments on that too that I'm watching very closely. And as we get more information, I can verify it. I'll talk more about it here. But when you look at everything in sum total of it, we have right now a hijacking of our democracy by men and women in robes, judges, cosplaying as, some sort of, counter-revolutionaries. They are, and they're by the way, they're hijacking the executive branch of government. So again, I was asked about this yesterday on TV. I said, look, I think this all bodes very poorly for the judiciary. I think they're the ones who will end up diminished in any confrontation with Trump, because Congress is electable every 2 years, the Senate every 6. They have to answer to the American people. They will absolutely not remove Trump. So all Trump has to do is stick a middle finger or two in the direction of the D.C. court, federal court, and tell Boasberg to shove it. And when he does that, and Boasberg can't do anything in return, it absolutely nullifies whatever power the court pretended to have. Devastating outcome for the U.S. judiciary. And by the way, not inconsistent with what other presidents have done, like Jackson and even George W. Bush. So don't tell me that this is unprecedented, never happened. A little bit of historical context there. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. All right, friends, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here. Happy Monday. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. Bill Maher on Friday on his show said basically as much as what was said in the Axios piece, saying basically it's game over for the Democrats. Here's how this went down.
California is projected to lose 3 seats, New York 2, also going to lose a seat, Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, all blue states. Who's getting these? Texas, Florida, Idaho, and Utah. I mean, this looks like game over, and the reason why people are voting with their feet is a lot of what your book is about. Yeah, taxes and regulation. I certainly been screaming about it forever. I did 3 years with a sign here that said, how long is it going to take me to get my solar hooked up? 3 years. Talking about it on television in this state. You couldn't do it. This state has almost 400,000 regulations. I just put in a new roof because the fire, I thought, oh, let's get a roof that's not going to burn up. 2 inspections. Why are you inspecting my roof? It's my roof. If it falls on me, that's my problem. And we're taxed more than any other state. People are leaving these kind of states for places where they're not, they feel the heavy breath of government on them. It's not that hard for Democrats to understand this, but they seem to be incapable of doing anything about it.
Now, Bill Maher, of course, is a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat and a lib himself. And my pushback to this sort of obvious and common sense thinking of his that he purports to now have is how many times has he voted for a Republican living in California? Right? I don't think he probably ever has. Maybe Schwarzenegger. Who knows? So this is the problem with the Democrats. They keep voting for these idiots over and over again. They keep lamenting, oh, I've been for 4 years, 3 years, I've been telling them you got to fix this. Okay, Bill, did you ever vote for a Republican? No. Because and this is the problem with all of these guys, they still get hung up on, but trans rights, but abortion. Charlemagne the God, who is a, well, would you describe him as? A personality, certainly a liberal guy, and he has a podcast. He's here with Andrew Schultz. Okay, Brilliant Idiots is the show. And, this is a guy who was, voted for Kamala, certainly, although he was occasionally critical of her. Here's what Charlemagne the God had to say.
If you're a Democrat, I'm going to tell you the worst thing that you could do right now. Speak for that party. Okay? That party's brand is in such disarray. They have no ideology. The people that are actually governing, like the Josh Shapiro's, the Gretchen Whitners, the Wes Moores, y'all stay in y'all states and keep governing and doing the work.
That's it.
Distance yourself from all of that that's going on in D.C. Distance yourself from the party and speak for you.
That's it.
I like Josh Shapiro a lot. I think he would be a great candidate for 2028, but this is my only problem. My only problem with the Democratic Party is that even the people that are good, the brand of being a Democrat is so bad.
Yeah, you got to rebrand that.
They shit up.
Well, there it is. And guess what? Chuck Schumer then goes on Sunday's Meet the Press, or as Rush would call them, Meet the Depressed, with Kristen Welker, and goes, oh, we've got a plan. We've got a plan. The Democrats have a plan.
Our plan, which we're united on, is to make Donald Trump the quickest lame duck in modern history by showing how bad his policies are. He represents the oligarchs, as I said. He's hurting average people in every way. And we are, through oversight hearings, we're exposing what he's doing. Through the courts, which I mentioned, we've had some real success in. Through legislation, and through organizing in all the districts throughout the country. So that I believe that because the Republicans are already nervous, a lot of them said don't hold town hall meetings. I believe by 2026, the Republicans in the House and Senate will feel like they're rats on a sinking ship because we have so gone after Trump and all the horrible things he's doing, and they will know it, see it, hate it, and act on it.
This is absolutely mental stuff, right? The Axios piece that I opened the show with today, Axios is not a conservative publication. Axios is run by libs. Axios is not friendly to Trump. Axios is ringing a massive alarm bell for the Democratic Party. And the leader of the Democratic Party, one of the leaders here, of course, Chuck Schumer, being the highest ranking national Democrat, as the Senate minority leader, excuse me. He's even George Soros money now behind an effort to oust him, is going on saying, oh yeah, we got this all under control. Everything's fine. Guess what? We got the Republicans, backing down. We're by the midterms, we're going to absolutely devastate. We're going to do all this stuff. And the only thing I will say is a lot can happen in 2 years. It's a long time, politically speaking, particularly. But based on any empirical evidence before us today, this is delusional. This is like Baghdad Bob doing a press conference as the U.S.-led, Don Rumsfeld, shocking our campaign, is falling down behind him, Baghdad, and he's up there going, oh yeah, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Oh yeah, no, American troops. Oh, what was that? No, that was not an Abrams tank. It was like, oh my gosh, that's like the best part to come out of the second invasion, right? The second Iraq war. Yeah, okay, and this is what Chuck Schumer sounds like. Why is it important? Well, this is a guy who was a smart guy in the room for a number of years. This is the guy who was the careful and measured politician who always managed to have the upper hand against Trump, the upstart guy who came onto the scene. This is the guy who held all the cards and had all the political power in D.C., and Trump came into his world and got trounced in the first go-around in 17 to 21 during his term. And now Trump is back with a vengeance. He's delivering on his promises to the American people. He is succeeding by every measurable metric. And it's Chuck Schumer that is down and out. It is Chuck Schumer fighting for his political life. Nancy Pelosi is reduced to a mumbling wreck and sitting there. She's not even in-house leadership anymore. Speaker Emerita, what they're calling her. Probably keeps her office and her staff and stature, but, on her way out. Trump has destroyed all of his enemies. And these are the enemies of the Republic, folks. These people are loathsome individuals. They are as anti-democracy, freedom, real freedom as you can get. And so the takeaway here is that things are going swimmingly. And all they have right now, I think, is delusion. You can't get very far on that. Certainly didn't get very far on it in 2024. All right, friends, talk to you tomorrow. You know where to find me. What's Right Show will be back Tuesday, right here on News Talk 840 KXNT.